Welcome back to the channel, guys. We got another video for you. So we have another guy calling out Carney's apparent bootlicking approach to Donald Trump, according to former cabinet minister. I'm not sure who the guy is. I'll be very honest with you. I've never seen him before, but I guess he used to be in government, and he's not too happy with what Carney's doing. So let's get into this, and then we'll talk about it. But before we do, please, again, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps grow the channel. We just have past the 10,000 subscriber mark, and again, I appreciate you guys so much for that. Thank you very, very much. It's greatly appreciated. So let's get into this, and then we'll talk about it after, like usual.
Do you think it would have been worth letting these negotiations that are so critical to Canada's economy end over the digital services tax?
Well, Catherine, if it comes to negotiating, you don't give away one of your cards. I mean, what do we get in return?
Back to the, well, we don't, I should say we don't know. In fact, we don't actually know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
That means
but I
nothing.
think what is happening is that, I mean, I go back to 2018 when Trump introduced aluminum and steel tariffs, and we retaliated. We got back. I mean, we put all kinds of constraints on about $16 billion worth of export. We're the largest export receiving country. We have some real muscle when we want to use it, but there seems to be just this tendency to sort of kind of tug the forelock and say, what can we do in front of this powerful guy? Well, you know, powerful people you can go around them and you can challenge them and you can contain them. I think that's a policy right now, is to contain the damage he does, so that we're not turning on to other generations the destruction that he's causing.
Well, and so I just want to be crystal clear about this, because I think by and large Canadians, said in the last election, yes, stand up to Donald Trump, but understanding what that looks like, you would be then advocating for, in this instance, no, we're going to stand our ground on digital services tax. We said this is an issue of fairness with U.S. tech giants. If you don't like it, you can take a hike. The negotiations are over. And by the way, here are our steel and aluminum tariffs. And that foregoes the chance of a deal in the next, let's say, 2 weeks.
I mean, putting the experts aside, what is wrong with the country deciding to tax some of the largest gougers of the Canadian finances, destroying our local community newspapers, pushing people out of business, and not tax them for it? I mean, since when? And I think what we've established with that is a precedent. What happens now if next week, all of a sudden, major droughts happen further in the States, and Donald Trump says, well, I'd like a little part of that water you guys have, that sort of big sucking faucet up in north. I mean, you're setting precedents, and you're simply, every time you give in, you're simply providing another kind of incentive. I mean, when you have his press secretary coming up saying the Canadian Prime Minister caved and it was a triumph for Donald Trump. Do you know who really reacts? And I got a lot of reaction because I took my education in the States. I know a lot of people. They said, why did you give that guy another win? We have to stop him.
I'll ask you about NATO as well. Only Spain opted out of the 5% spending target last week. You said in your post, other world leaders, quote, sat clapping like trained seals. Again, this is a situation where there does seem to be consensus among the world leaders, yes, perhaps driven by Donald Trump. The United States may not be there to protect Canada in the same way that they once were. So if there is this international consensus, and if there is an acknowledgement of a need to be more self-reliant, again, I guess the question becomes, what ought Canada to do, if not go along with where so much of the world seems to be going?
But that's what disturbed me about the meeting. We're using 5% as the goal in itself. You're not asking to do what? What impact does it have? I mean, we're not talking about improving our diplomacy or our development, which are equally important tools to deal with the world and with the threats and the risks we have. And in fact, one of the concerns that I feel, and others do, is that in order to meet that kind of commitment, we're going to have to cut back on the very things that have made Canada a distinctive and effective international player.
You in fact, in another post, talk about, you say, what else will we quietly surrender? Cultural industries, environmental standards, agricultural security, Arctic sovereignty. Wait till Stephen Miller whispers in the presidential ear that Canadian immigration policy supports diversity. And I guess I wondered reading that, why You are not giving Mark Carney the benefit of the doubt. You talk about the fact that we don't know what's going on in these negotiations, but you are assuming that things could go quite badly for this country.
Well, here's my point. I understand the pressures, but Prime Minister Carney and the government have to be very careful that what they do doesn't put us into sort of a straitjacket and present us and limit our ability to continue to make changes and innovate. And that really means that we have to ensure that the decisions are the right ones. I mean, I went through debates like the free trade debate in '88 where we argued, said this deal is not a good deal for Canada because we give away too much. We have no idea what's being negotiated. And that's one of the calls I've made is I think Mr. Carney and the government should make it very clear that they may negotiate a deal, but they should not agree to a deal. They have to bring it back to Parliament. Let's have a debate. Let's have an openness. Let's have committee.
That'll never happen.
Let Canadians get engaged so that we feel we know what's going on.
Never happen.
And that assurance that the Prime Minister has been trying to offer, that there won't be a deal signed if it's not. You will get a deal if it's in Canada's best interest. If it's not in Canada's best interest, there won't be a deal. That seems to not be of particular comfort to you.
Wait. Who chooses the best interest? He said, okay, we're going to test this in the parliamentary system. That's why we have a parliamentary system. You don't rely upon one man. I think we're all getting a little nervous about.
By the way, I just have a feeling that whenever the deal gets done, it's not going to be in the best interest of Canadians and regular working Canadian people and their values. It's going to be Mark Carney's values that are benefited. It's going to be the bankers, the globalists, the elitists who are benefited. And I have a feeling there's a certain company called Brookfield that'll probably get some good benefits from that deal too, aka more money, whatever that looks like. But you know that Mark Carney is not looking out for the average Canadian. He's looking after his green agenda in his company. Guy's an asset manager, not a prime minister. He's just wearing the hat of a prime minister right now, but he's no prime minister. He is not looking out for the best interests of any of us.
Leaders who kind of speak ex cathedra, they're the only ones that have the truth. And Mr. Carney is a good man, he's an intelligent man, but is the only arbiter of what's in the best interest of Canada? Isn't it? I mean, we've seen in the legislation the government's brought forward the indifference to Indigenous rights. We've seen the difference to civil liberties issues. We've seen the difference to the rights of refugees. That's not in the best interest of Canada.
Because we have you here, I am going to take a little bit of a turn and just ask you in closing about something else that has been so important in your career. You were the driving force behind the Ottawa Treaty, the global convention to stop landmines. And you have written, too, about the importance of Canada standing up for Ukraine. I believe you mentioned it earlier in this conversation. This week, Ukraine and 5 other European countries moved to pull out of the convention, citing the threat of Russia. They are...
I want to skip by this. Actually, you know what? We're going to cut it off there because I think they're moving on to something else. But I'm not really sure when exactly he said the bootlicking part because I watched the first few minutes. He didn't say it. He didn't say it there. And then looks here like they've got some other guests. So either way, I'm not going to watch this whole thing. It's like 18 minutes. But, the guy made some fair points. But at the same time, he then says, well, Carney's a good man. He's a good man. Really? Really? Don't agree with that at all. But I do wonder what kind of deal we're going to get. Is it going to be what's best for Canadians? No. Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau and their entire cabinet and the Liberal Party itself has no interest in the best interest of actual Canadians. They're only looking out for themselves. They don't care what happens to us. And at least with Pierre Poilievre, and people say, well, I don't really trust the Conservatives. Well, listen, I've been a part of that same boat. I've only voted for them once in this past election. And it's not because all of a sudden I'm just some staunch conservative. It's because I like Pierre Poilievre, and I think that he means what he says. We don't know. And again, I have a hard time trusting politicians. But if I had to pick one to trust, it's going to be Pierre. I've heard a bunch of people who have interactions with him, who have spoken to him, and he's very sincere. At least he seems that way. You don't really know until he gets in there, which he will. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day he will be our prime minister, and that's going to be, his real test. So we'll have to see what happens then. But if I had to trust one guy to restore what was once a great country, it would be Pierre Poilievre, not Mark Carney, not a globalist, not a banker, not someone who's already caved to Trump and bend the knee to Trump, as Mark Carney said that Pierre Poilievre would do, which again is just more confession by projection. Look at what the conservatives are going to do. That just means look what the liberals are already doing. That's all that means. But either way, let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Carney's going to get the best deal? Or do you think he's going to get exposed and bent over by Donald Trump, if you know what I mean? Let me know what you think. Please don't be shy. Please also don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really does help grow the channel. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back shortly with a new video.